Hey, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. There's a 3-hour course that I'm going to be teaching. It's called Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha, where over the next 3 hours, I'm going to first do meditation with you guys. Then I'm going to teach you what the teachings of the Buddha are, what the teachings of the Buddha are not, just kind of giving you an overview of that. And then we're going to take a break, give you guys a chance to meet each other, spend time, relax, all that good stuff. And then we're going to study the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. And in 4 simple statements, you'll be able to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to actually fix it, and in a way that you can independently verify his teachings. Nothing the Buddha taught is based in belief, so it's important that you don't believe anything that I say or anything that I talk about. His teachings aren't believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life, getting to the point where your mind is experiencing enlightenment. You're going to learn more about what enlightenment is, but just as we get started here, what enlightenment is the mental state that you can attain in this life where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind in the enlightened mental state will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of that can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. So this very first teaching that the Buddha has of the Four Noble Truths helps you to understand what's causing these feelings so that then you can actually eliminate them. Because oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but as long as you keep thinking that way, you'll never actually be able to solve this. So in a way that you can independently verify, I'm going to help you to be able to see what's causing these feelings, because then you can actually target with a real solution to be able to fix it. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start is with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. If you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. We have chanting sheets over there on the cabinet, and you're welcome to chant along because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. For those of you guys online, you'll find these on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the middle and you'll see the chanting sheet there. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, the students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this was used as a learning tool or as a learning device. There's nothing mystical or magical in the teachings of the Buddha. This isn't rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer, anything like that. When you're chanting nowadays, it's just to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used more as a learning tool, as a learning device. If you look at the English translations of these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants by himself, because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego or arrogance if somebody did that. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you've eliminated that out of the mind. The mind doesn't have that any longer. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you might actually have appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think these actually came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So you're welcome to chant along if you like, and you'll see the benefit of easing the mind into meditation and getting more benefit out of it. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to provide you some guidance where I'm essentially going to be teaching you or instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. But then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating at the same time. Everyone here and anyone who's joining online will just all be meditating. And during this period of time, you might hear some sounds like a car going by, a dog barking, a bird chirping. Someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated because you live in an impermanent world and everything's constantly changing around you. So you'd like to be in meditation, understanding that you will hear sounds occasionally. Those sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away because the world around you is impermanent. And you can understand that's the way that the world works. So you can be at ease when you hear anything during meditation. Then when we come out of the meditation, I'm going to do the chanting, which will bring us out of the meditation. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to learn about the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught, and you would learn these at different times as part of assembling like a tool belt and using these different tools at different times. So as part of your journey to enlightenment, you would learn these in different courses and retreats. He taught the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's not possible. So I'm going to give you some guidance on the seated position because this tends to be what people use the most to kind of get started. But just understand what I share with you are just suggestions or recommendations, that there isn't just one fixed way to sit, because that would be permanence, where in reality, everybody's body is different and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. So you could be sitting on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if someone's at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair, you can sit however you like. So what I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations that you could use if you like, but you could also just come up with something on your own too, as long as the body's comfortable. You're not interested in the body being painful or luxurious, but in the middle where it's comfortable. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation in the lower legs and cause pain in the body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And same thing goes for anybody who's in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then your hands and arms can just go wherever you're comfortable. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, your mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will keep your mind attentive and alert, because during meditation, what you're doing is this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So the sternum up and shoulders back will help you to be able to do this, and it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to do the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa อิติปิโสมหะคะวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. Nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up to the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเกวา โอตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมดามังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this afternoon. I'm going to share this content with you guys to help you guys understand an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. This is a great place for someone to start with their journey to enlightenment, because this is where you can just get an introduction to what his teachings are, what his teachings are not. And then we're going to explore his very first teaching in a way that you can independently verify. As I share with you guys today, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. I'm going to be pausing a few times and seeing what questions you guys have. We have microphones in the white bowl there in the center of the room, and there's some up here as well. All you need to do is get a microphone and press the gray button, and you'll see the lights come on. And you can hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. So it'd be great if you could use that. And then you can keep these with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share it with them. And then when you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anyone who's joining online, you can put your questions into the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So the best place to really get started with understanding an introduction to the teachings of a Buddha is to be able to understand what is an actual Buddha. I'm going to share with you guys what a Buddha is, because oftentimes people aren't familiar with what an actual Buddha is. So an individual who's a Buddha, they meet three primary criteria, and then there's some other criteria as well. The first one is that they will have attained enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then they will dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha, where you're going to need teachers and guides to help you along the path, because your mind isn't capable of getting to enlightenment by itself without the help of any teachers or any guides. This type of individual is very rare in the world. Sometimes people say everybody is a Buddha, but the Buddha never actually said that. That's what people say today. And that's not actually true. If you understand the Buddha's teachings, he talks about how rare it is that a Buddha actually exists in the world. So these are the three primary criteria of what makes a Buddha, is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime, and then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. Well, also, they have these criteria as well. They have a deep, profound memory. Even in the unenlightened state, they can remember countless details about their current life and their previous lives as well. They accumulate all that wisdom to be able to then get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's what actually allows them to do it. Where, like your mind, you have a certain limited capacity. It's kind of like a hard drive. And when you reach your capacity, you need to delete old files in order to store new files. So that's why, like in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, you probably remember most of the things you've been up to. But if you think back to your childhood, you might have like a really hard time remembering all the things that you were involved in. You just have spotty memories because you've reached your capacity and now you've had to delete those old files to store new files. Where an individual who gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, they actually don't have that. They have an unlimited capacity to remember countless details about their current life and their previous lives too. And all that wisdom culminates into them being able to get to enlightenment without the help of teachers or guides. Also, they can quickly determine the condition of someone's mind by spending time with that person, and then they can offer them teachings to actually be able to help them to be able to progress closer to enlightenment. But they only do this with their students. They're not just going to, kind of peer in on somebody and say, by the way, you should start doing this and you should start doing that, right? It's only to help their students to be able to understand what's going on in their mind. So a Buddha actually has the ability to observe another person's mind and see what's going on in that person's mind. Then the individual who's a Buddha, they will be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. They'll have a deep practice of their teachings. Whatever they're teaching, they're also practicing those same things too, because they understand that their students are learning just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions, that their actions are also teaching as well. So they're actually practicing their teachings as well. So whatever they're teaching, they're going to be practicing those same things. So this is what we refer to as a Buddha. And this is also what we call a fully, perfectly enlightened one. And this type of individual is very rare in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So the person that we refer to as the Buddha, he was born in 563 BCE in a place that we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in northeast India. And then he died in 483 BCE. But those lines between India and Nepal didn't exist 2,500 years ago. It was just a bunch of kingdoms in that region of the world. So we refer to this type of individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because by the time they get to enlightenment, what they know about the path is the true path to enlightenment. It's very clear to them exactly what is the path to enlightenment. Where an individual who gets to enlightenment, if they've studied with, say, a teacher who's not an actual Buddha, then that individual would have still gotten to enlightenment perhaps, but there's still a few things in their mind that didn't lead to their enlightenment, but they're still actually doing those kinds of things. So maybe like a certain meditation, that if an individual who's going to become a Buddha tries a certain meditation, they will actually see whether it works to improve the condition of their mind. And if it does, they know that this is part of the path to enlightenment. But if it doesn't improve the condition of their mind, they will discard it because they know that that's not part of the path to enlightenment. But an individual who's not a Buddha, they actually don't do that. They will tend to hold on to these things and still be practicing that meditation, maybe just out of respect for their teacher. And now it didn't really contribute to their enlightenment, but they're still doing it. So they have a little bit of extra baggage by the time a regular average person gets to enlightenment. So a person who's a Buddha, they don't have teachers. So they're going to discard anything that didn't actually work to be able to get to enlightenment. So this is why we call them a fully, perfectly enlightened one. And then they spend the rest of their life illuminating that path so that more and more people can see what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. So this is a enlightened or a Buddha, a fully, perfectly enlightened one. So now what I'm going to share with you guys is what are the teachings of a Buddha and what the teachings of the Buddha are not, because this will kind of help you just kind of get introduced to his teachings before ultimately I share with you his very first teaching. So the Teachings of the Buddha are a path to attaining enlightenment in this life through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered these pollutions that are in the mind, and then he discovered the tools and the techniques of how to eliminate them. His mind had these same pollutions, and then he figured out how to actually get rid of them and get to this enlightened mental state. And we call this a purification of the mind, where you're eliminating these unwholesome qualities out of the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, the mind will have attained this mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You can attain this in this life and enjoy that mental state for the rest of your life, or you can also attain it at death too. That would be the next best option, but ideally you would attain it during your life, and then you'll be able to enjoy that for the rest of your life. You'll notice that you'll no longer experience any of these discontent feelings. All the sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this can be eliminated from the mind when you understand what's causing it and you uproot the causes and conditions that are producing it. It can be completely eliminated out of the mind. Like I mentioned, people oftentimes think that these feelings are being caused by something external, but it's what's going on in one's own mind that's actually causing this. And that's why you can eliminate it. Whereas if it was other people that was causing these feelings, you'd never be able to actually eliminate that. So I'm going to teach you today what's actually causing these so you can see that for yourself, and then you can independently verify it. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because with those pollutions in the mind, you'll be inhibited from this. You won't notice, or you won't have the ability to have that high degree of focus, concentration, memory, and clarity of mind. But when you uproot those pollutions, your mind will be performing optimally at that point. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom about the world that other people don't actually have. That's what it means to awaken to enlightenment, is that you're actually cultivating wisdom about the world around you. There's certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And when you're cultivating wisdom about these natural laws, your mind is now awakening, and you're starting to make wiser and wiser decisions about the things that you're involved in and what you do and how you conduct your life on a day-to-day basis. And as you're doing that, you'll notice that you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings. Where right now you might have challenges with that. You might be in certain situations where you're impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, but that's what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes people think it's the other person who is causing you to do that, but it's actually your own mind. It's your own decisions that are leading to that. So you can get to a point where you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody, that you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility towards people. You'll notice that you're not causing any harm to other beings, and because of this, all your relationships will be at ease. They'll be really blossoming, both your personal and professional relationships, where right now there's probably a bit of harshness or bitterness in some of your relationships, and you can actually eliminate all of this. Again, oftentimes we think that it's the other person who's causing this, but it's coming from your own mind. And as long as you put out the bitterness and harshness and hostility, it's just going to come back to you. You can see in the relationships where you're like that same bitterness and hostility is coming back to you. So you can actually improve that, where you're not doing those kinds of things, and you can have harmonious relationships with everybody around you. You can get to the point where you don't even experience a bad mood any longer, that it's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience a bad mood. So the reason why this is occurring is because the mind is being purified, as I mentioned. What you're purifying the mind of is the pollutions that the Buddha discovered. There's these 10 individual pollutions. They're called the 10 fetters. And we call them fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, that if you were somebody they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. So like prisoners, they would just keep you in an open field with a shackle, a chain, and a ball. Or today we put prisoners in jail cells. So that's what a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. So when the Buddha discovered these pollutions in the mind, he referred to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped or confined in this constant state of continuing to experience discontentedness over and over and over again. So the most detailed level of this we refer to as the 10 fetters. But when we talk about it at a high level, we call them the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. This is craving, anger, and ignorance. And I'm going to just give you a light little introduction to what these are so you can see this for yourself and how your mind is actually doing this. So what craving is craving is the mind's longing and yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. It's like an unquenchable thirst where the mind chases and chases and chases and chases and chases. And if you get what you want, you get really happy. You get pleasant feelings about that. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So as long as your mind's chasing after things and you can only be happy when you get what you want, then that means your happiness is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It's kind of like if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account has this much money, if the weather is this, if, so forth and so on, blah, 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 all these different criteria, then I will be happy, right? So your happiness is actually shrinking. This is called conditional happiness, that you can only be happy if this condition is met. So if you get really happy when it's sunny outside, that means when it rains, you're sad or frustrated. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you get angry or frustrated or annoyed. This is called conditional happiness. The mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition. And that's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is untrained. It's got this craving, this longing, this yearning, and you can't always get what you want because you live in an impermanent world. So as long as the mind has craving, desire, attachment, it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. Then when it's not getting what it wants, this anger is arising. And when this anger is arising, the mind firmly believes that it's something external. The mind will think that it's mom and dad or brothers or sisters or your boss or your coworkers that are causing you to be angry. And when the anger is arising, it's very painful for the mind. And oftentimes an individual becomes unskillful, lashing out at other people. You might actually push people away, thinking that they're the ones who are causing your problem. And if you push them out of your life, that then you'll be happy, right? This is called aversion. You might have pushed away friends or family members out of your life, but you can see that they didn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get annoyed, right? So pushing people away isn't what's going to produce your peacefulness. Or the second thing you'll do when the mind thinks that the problem is external is it'll become bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. The mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people, trying to pressure them or control them to do things your way. So as long as you're doing this, where you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people, then you can't live with all beings harmoniously, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you, because not everybody does things the same way. The world is impermanent. So this anger is motivating unskillful conduct, and it's coming from craving, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way permanently when you live in an impermanent world. And where all of this is coming from is what we call ignorance, or some people call it ignorance. I don't tend to refer to it this way because this is a derogatory word, a degrading word. The Buddha would have never used this word in referring to people, because an enlightened being doesn't talk to people in degrading and diminishing ways. But people are translating his words into this word. But a better way to think about this is the unknowing of true reality, or misunderstanding, or confusion. That's what the mind is actually having, is that it's confused. It has a misunderstanding. It has this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, that it just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind firmly believes that it's mom and dad that are making me angry, or brothers and sisters, or my life partner, or something like that. Where in reality, it's the craving that's causing this, the craving for permanence. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. That's why everything on the path to enlightenment is about cultivation of wisdom. Because when you cultivate wisdom, you can see the truth. And now with that truth, you can make wiser and wiser decisions. That's why there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. Because with belief, You don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. So you would like to get to wisdom. And the only way that you can do that is through learning, examining, and investigating, through reflecting to verify if something's true or false, and then practicing to be able to train your mind to actually make decisions wisely. And then when you see the results to the condition of your mind in your life, you'll know that this is the truth. So this craving, anger, and ignorance are the pollutions of mind that we talk about from a high level. But there's a deeper level of detail here called the 10 fetters. So this wisdom that the mind is lacking is that it has lack of wisdom of the natural laws and how the world truly works, what true reality is in the actual world. So what the Buddha is doing is he's helping you to cultivate wisdom about these natural laws. These natural laws are affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. And when you lack wisdom of these natural laws, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions, and it produces unwholesome results for you. So like when we were children, we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And because of that, we struggled. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we were living in a world that we didn't understand. We were struggling and having difficulties. But slowly but surely, we could say that we awoke to the natural law of gravity. We cultivated wisdom about this natural law of gravity. And now, being wiser, we don't struggle with that natural law anymore. That's why we tie our shoes. We look at the surface of the sidewalk as we're walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And now we got to the point where we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we make wise decisions about this natural law and we don't struggle anymore. But there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And if you don't understand those natural laws, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions and you will experience unwholesome results coming back to you. We refer to this as Gama. Now, you've probably heard the word karma before. This is the Sanskrit version. It's just a different language where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So we use the word karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would use that because it'd be easier for everyone, but it doesn't. So I still need to use this word karma. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. Whenever you make decisions wisely, it will produce wholesome karma, or wholesome results. When you make decisions unwisely, it will produce unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. And again, when we make unwise decisions in the world and we're experiencing unwholesome results, what people tend to do is they tend to blame it on other people. That you might think it's other people that are causing you to experience a particular thing in the world. But it's actually our own decisions that are causing whatever it is that we experience. But as long as we think it's other people, we never cultivate the wisdom that we need to make improved decisions and experience better results. Sometimes people might think that what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis is good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate. Or some people think it's God or some entity called the universe that is producing whatever they experience on a day-to-day basis. Or they might blame it on others. And as long as you do this, then you're not cultivating wisdom to make improved decisions. So for example, if I was walking down the beach and the wind was blowing in my face and I'm kicking up sand and that sand is blowing back in my face, and I think that, this is either good luck or bad luck, or this is my destiny, or this is my fate, or this is God or some entity called the universe that is causing this for me, or it's other people that are doing this for me. Well, I never cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and then experience a different result. But if I understand that what I'm experiencing is the results of my decisions, then I can just modify my decisions and I can experience improved results. So that's the power of understanding something like the natural law of karma, is that if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if you think it's any of these other things, like good luck, bad luck, destiny, fate, God, or some entity called the universe, or if it's other people that are causing you to experience these things, then you never cultivate the needed wisdom and improve your life. So the Buddha is helping you to awaken or cultivate wisdom about this natural law. And you do that through learning, examining, and investigating his teachings. That's what you're doing in a class like this, or if you're reading books or things like that, watching videos, podcasts, things like this. Then you need to reflect on those teachings. Independently verify through your own direct experience whether those teachings could potentially be true or false. Then you practice those teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life and starting to make decisions through that newfound wisdom that you're starting to cultivate. And then you're going to see that the condition of your mind and your life is gradually improving, and you'll know that these teachings are true. So the Buddha didn't explain the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows certain rules or commandments, then the world's going to become a peaceful place. He didn't explain the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, now you can navigate it peacefully through those natural laws. But when you don't understand the way the world is, it's very difficult to navigate the world and make wise decisions. So if you've ever watched the news, or if you've ever heard from your family and you're like, I just don't understand why they keep making decisions that way. I have no idea why they're doing that, right? That's your mind living in a world that it doesn't understand. It's struggling. It's having difficulties. That's what the anger and the sadness and the stress and the anxiety and the guilt, the shame, the fear is. The mind struggling to live in a world that it doesn't understand. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to cultivate this wisdom so now you can see true reality and make wiser and wiser decisions. So you're training the mind to experience this complete peace through acquiring wisdom of these natural laws. And through that, you're eradicating and eliminating the pollutions of mind, and that's what we call awakening or purification of the mind. Then the teachings of the Buddha, they're timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is the same natural laws that exist today that existed 2,500 years ago. So his teachings are very clear, very concise, and very precise because he's describing these teachings. He's describing these natural laws. The teachings that people remember in their mind, in the books and all of these things, those are impermanent. Those have been changing. And that's why people oftentimes don't understand what he originally taught. But the natural laws themselves are actually exactly the same during his life as now. And as you learn his teachings, not believing in them, but learn and reflect and practice, you can see that he spoke very clear, concise, and precise, and you can cultivate the same wisdom that he had and get to the point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful because you're awakening to these same natural laws. The Buddha did teach about the cycle of rebirth, and he taught about 5 realms of existence: hell, animal realm, the realm of afflicted spirits, human realm, and heavenly realm. And when someone first approaches the teachings of the Buddha, I suggest you set that aside because it's not something that you need to really learn right now when you're first getting started. Because remember, there's nothing in the teachings of the Buddha based in belief. Even the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence can actually be independently verified. You might not have the wisdom of how to independently verify it now, but it's something that you can acquire along the way. In this book series that I share of 13 books, in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria of how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But it's in chapter 105, volume 11 for a reason, because it's not something you normally approach when you first get started on the path. But he did teach these things for a reason, and I'll explain to you the reason why he taught it. Well, first of all, because it's true. It's true reality. You can actually independently verify it. Right now, you might be believing you only have one life, but you don't have any evidence that you only have one life, other than the fact that at this point in time, you might not be able to remember your previous lives. But the other reasons why he actually taught this is because as you're training your mind and you're lifting this pollution out of your mind, you might actually start having vivid memories of your past lives. And if you start having these vivid memories of your past lives, and let's just say, for example, you were murdered in your past life, and you keep having these recurring memories of being murdered. If you didn't understand that that was your past life, you could actually really be shaken up by that you have these repetitive memories of being murdered over and over and over again. But if you understand it's your past lives, you can just set it to the side and move on with your day. But otherwise, if you didn't understand that, it could really shake you up. In terms of these 5 realms of existence, some people can actually see these beings, like hell beings, afflicted spirits or ghosts, and heavenly beings. You are familiar with that. heavenly beings, some people can see these. These beings are formless, meaning they don't have physical form, but some people can actually see them. And again, if you started seeing these beings and you didn't understand that's the way the world truly is, it could really shake you up. You could think you're going crazy because not everybody can actually see them. And some people can actually hear communication from these beings, because oftentimes people think that these beings are in some far distant land somewhere. They think about the hell beings as being deep down in the core of the earth, or the heavenly beings being way up in the sky somewhere. But all these beings are in the same time and space as us, like animals, right? Like there's a human being sitting here in this chair now, and if I got up and left, there could be a squirrel or a cockroach or a spider that would come and sit here in this chair. It's the same thing with hell beings, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings. They're all in the same time and space as us. They're not in some far distant land somewhere else. So you might actually see these beings and you might actually hear these beings. And if you understand that this is normal, your mind won't be shaken up by that. So the Buddha taught this for a reason. He also taught about this being of God, where sometimes people think that he didn't teach about this being. You'll hear some people go as far as say that the Buddha denied the existence of God, or that he rejected God. If people say this, they haven't actually penetrated into his teachings far enough, because the Buddha talks about God in different parts of his teachings. But he doesn't make God as the central focus of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your own decisions that determine that. So this being God isn't here to punish you or reward you. This being isn't judging you and sending you to a good place or a bad place. You don't have to fear this being. This being doesn't have a plan for you that you have to fulfill. You don't have to worship and praise this being. Instead, the Buddha talks about this being as being another being in existence among all other beings. So you can actually get to enlightenment either with a relationship with God or without one. It's really up to you. It's kind of like a neighbor, right? You could have a relationship with your neighbor, and it's kind of nice because when you go on vacation, someone can look over your house, maybe check your mail or something like this. But you could also choose not to have a relationship with your neighbor, and your life would be just fine, right? You'd be just fine. You don't have a relationship with your neighbor, and you can go on with your life. It's the same thing with this being of God, that someone can choose to have a relationship with this being or not. It's up to you. And there's different programs that we teach where we help people to understand this being more closely. But just understand the Buddha did teach about this being, but he didn't put this being at the center of his teachings, because it's not this being who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. So the person that he put at the center of his teachings is you. You're the one that needs to do the work. You're the one that needs to train your mind and do the meditation and learn all the other wisdom to be able to move to enlightenment. So it's you at the center of his teachings. Okay, so it's not God, it's at the center of his teachings. The largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha are in something referred to as the Pali Canon. The Pali is a language that is a historical language that they captured the teachings of the Buddha in, or at least that's the volume of the collection of series and the books that we actually look to as the original source teachings of the Buddha. It's the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha. It's 45 volumes that are about this thick. Not everything that the Buddha taught is in those books, but also not everything that's in those books was from the Buddha either. We know that because 2,500 years of history, it would be naive of us to think that everything the Buddha taught is in those books, and it would be naive of us to think that everything that's in those books is actually from the Buddha. It's the same thing with things like the Bible and the Quran and all these other things. People who really look at this closely, they know that that's not everything that Prophet Muhammad or Jesus or the Buddha taught is in those books. And not everything in those books is what was actually taught by that person. It would be naive of us to think that's the case because of impermanence, and the world is constantly changing. But this is the largest, most complete collection that we have of his teachings. During his lifetime, everything that he taught was oral because the ability to write things down didn't exist 2,500 years ago. But shortly after his death, they started documenting his teachings. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind will know the teachings that it took for you to get to enlightenment. You will never forget those teachings. So by the time that the Buddha died, there were countless people that had gotten to enlightenment, and 500 of them got together and they started documenting his teachings. And that's what we now refer to as the Pali Canon. And this is in the 45 volumes of books that I just mentioned. The average person who considers themselves to be a Buddhist practitioner, they actually don't study the original words of the Buddha, which is unfortunate because you probably can't imagine choosing to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha without actually seeing his original words. Because these books are so voluminous and it's so expensive to print out, the average person doesn't even have access to them. Like here in Thailand, it would cost you about 3 months of your salary to be able to print out and have a version of that for yourself. And you probably don't own any book collections worth 3 months of your salary. So even the average temple doesn't have these original teachings. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one that shares the original teachings of the Buddha. So if you do the math, that's less than 1%. Right? So what you would like to do, if you're going to be interested in getting to enlightenment, is study his original teachings, his original words with reliable translations. And that's what this book series does that I share with you. We've consolidated those 45 books into 13 books, and then we make it available for free so that everybody can get access to it. You can download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. If you like printed versions here, you just need to reimburse us for the printing cost so that we can buy more books. Or you can order it on Amazon, and then that way you can get access to it. And it's actually very reasonable to be able to get all 13 books in this consolidated format. So that's the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha. And I titled it, The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because it's revealing these hidden teachings, which they weren't intentionally hidden, but just because it was so expensive to print them out, that they were kind of inadvertently hidden for so many years. And now I'm interested in seeing them come back into the world more and more. And then lastly, on what the teachings of the Buddha are, and then I'll just open up to whatever questions you guys have, is the teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what his teachings are for, is to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is not the outside world. That's what people are tending to do, is they try to go around the world and they try to fix other people, where that's never going to get to your peace and your joy. You need to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development. The Buddha wasn't out there trying to change other people. He worked on his own mind. He trained his own mind first. And then once he trained his own mind, then he shared with people what he did in order to get to this peace and joy. So the Buddha's teachings are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. And what's hurting you is inside one's own mind, and you'll be able to see that when I teach you the Four Noble Truths today. So do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are? Anything you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay. So now what I'll share with you guys is what the teachings of the Buddha are not, because this is one of the ways to be able to learn what the teachings of the Buddha are, is to understand what they are not. And that'll help you to more fully understand what his teachings are. His teachings are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, and views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you do not believe in them. In fact, his teachings don't have belief in them at all. And it's not even about an afterlife. It's about getting to a wonderful life now. It's not about what's going to happen next. It's about learning, growing, and developing now in this life. So his teachings aren't opinions. They're not views. They're not beliefs. It's not doctrine. You can independently verify every single thing that he actually taught. So that's what his teachings are, these truths that you can independently verify. Depending on how you think about religion, I don't think about the Buddhist teachings as a religion, but it really comes down to how you think about religion. If you think about one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, or you think about rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, or if you think about rules and commandments that everyone must follow in order to create a peaceful world, then the teachings of the Buddha aren't a religion, because the Buddhist teachings don't have any of those things. There's not one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. And there aren't these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you're seeing those kinds of things, even in a Buddhist temple, even being done by somebody with a shaved hair and wearing orange robes or white clothes, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. Those are gross misunderstandings of his teachings. And the Buddha didn't teach rules and commandments. You will never get to enlightenment by following rules. You actually need to understand the natural laws and how that's affecting your mind. There's a big gray area, and you need to be able to see how to apply the decision-making or the discernment, wise decision-making in any given situation. So if this is how you think about religion, then the Buddha's teachings aren't an actual religion. So also, if you think about punishments and rewards, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. He never actually taught any kind of punishments and rewards. He's not dangling a carrot to try to get you to do something. He's not trying to convince you to do anything at all. He already got to peace and joy. It's like, all right, you would like to learn how to do that? Here it is. If you're not interested, okay, enjoy, be well, right? His teachings also aren't magical and mystical. They're not superstitious and auspicious. You can actually see in his teachings, he says it very clearly that there's nothing superstitious or auspicious about his teachings. Also, his teachings aren't something to attempt to force or convince other people to do. Sometimes when you're learning things like this, people might teach you to go out into the world and convince other people to do these same things that you're doing. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. It's for you to learn and grow and develop. You might actually think of it like a self-help program, that you're doing this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development to become a better and better human being. And it's not about going out and convincing other people to do that. It's about you doing that work. So you don't need to go out and attempt or force or try to convince other people to do these types of things. This is a program for you to be able to learn and grow and develop. The way other people find out about it is that when you're getting more and more peaceful and you're getting more joyful and they see you smiling and having a good time and you're not stressed, you're not having anxiety, they're going to be like, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, I'm studying the teachings of the Buddha. It's kind of like if somebody was sitting in a restaurant eating a big piece of chocolate cake and they had a big smile on their face. You'd be like, where'd you get that piece of chocolate cake from? And they're like, oh, right over there. They just made a fresh piece of chocolate or a big chocolate cake. I just got the first slice. And they've got this big smile on their face sitting there eating this piece of chocolate cake. And you're like, I'd like to get some of that chocolate cake too. So when you're becoming more and more peaceful, more and more joyful, the people around you are going to be like, where'd you get that peace from? Where'd you get that joy from? Where'd you get that smile on your face? Oh, that's the teachings of the Buddha that's doing that, right? So that's how these teachings spread in the world. Also, the teachings of the Buddha aren't these short, catchy phrases that are going to produce some sort of benefit. If you've been on social media and you look at some of the memes that they show on social media, you'll see these little short, catchy phrases, and then it'll say, the Buddha, right? If you look at this and you research this, 99.99999% of the time, the Buddha never actually said those things. Those are actually quotes from like the last 50 years, 100 years, maybe 200 years. The Buddha never actually said those things. His discourses are very deep, very meaningful. He doesn't have these little short, catchy phrases. So if you're seeing those kinds of things, then it can be misleading to you because you'll think that it's the teachings of the Buddha when in reality it's not. So if you see those kinds of things, you can be sure that it's most likely not the teachings of the Buddha. And then lastly, what the teachings of the Buddha are not is they are not teachings that are stuck in a cultural past that degrades or denigrates any type of person. Sometimes people think about this individual who taught 2,500 years ago. Surely he must have denigrated women and minorities, right? No, he didn't. He actually talked in positive ways about all people. He taught everybody is equal. He taught everybody to respect everybody. He taught husbands to respect wives and wives to respect husbands. He never said that same-gender relationships are any kind of problematic thing. In fact, he was aware of same-gender relationships, and he understood that it's two loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex. They're not causing harm to anybody whatsoever. So you won't find the Buddha degrading or denigrating anybody at all through his teachings. Today, you might see people doing that. And they might say that it's from the Buddhist teachings, but you'll never see that in his original teachings whatsoever. So that's why it's important that you study his original teachings, so you see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. Because you'll have different people that will tell you he taught certain things, but when you penetrate into it yourself, you'll see the truth about what it is that he actually taught. So do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are not? Yeah. We have mics up here too for those of you guys that would like a mic.
If it's not no rituals or churches, then why so many temples?
This is why do we have so many temples? The reason why we have so many temples is because Thai people understand how important the teachings of the Buddha are to their community. The way you might think about a temple is it's like the womb of a woman. The womb of a woman is the very best place to grow into a human being. Without the womb of a woman, you wouldn't be able to grow into a viable human being. So the temple is actually created by all the household practitioners. They donate their land, they donate their resources, and they create this womb, and then they support it. The ordained practitioners are living in that womb to grow and develop, where they're doing that consistently. Where what we do as household practitioners is we enter in and out of that womb on a regular basis, like a daily basis, right? Some temples you can stay at for longer periods of time. And while you're living in that womb, you're growing and developing into a better and better person. So one of the ways you might think about a temple is like a learning center or a cultural center, or like a mental health network that all throughout the country, there you can walk into a temple and you can find someone like me, and then you can talk to them and you can get help without any expectation of any payment or anything like that. So the Thai people have created this self-funded mental health network all over their country, where people can enter in and out of that to be able to learn and grow and develop. But when you go in those places, you're going to see people who aren't practicing these teachings, even the ordained practitioners. You might think everybody who's wearing an orange robe and shaving their head must be practicing the teachings of the Buddha and learning the teachings of the Buddha. But that's the mind thinking about permanence, that the world is permanent, where the world is actually impermanent. So you'll hear occasionally people doing unwise things that are ordained or otherwise in Buddhist society. So the temples, the reason why we have so many is because people are interested in having these in their community. But the reason why you'll see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and things like this is because people aren't studying with his original teachings. They don't have access to them, and therefore they're not actually studying them to be able to see what are the actual true teachings that he taught. So you'll see plenty of misunderstandings throughout the temples, but more and more you'll see that there's temples that are interested in seeing the teachings of the Buddha flourish. But right now, it's just a very small number of temples that are actually dedicated to sharing the true teachings of the Buddha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. This microphone. All right. No other questions? Okay, so what I usually do at this point is I usually give you guys a little break. It's 2:15. I'll give you guys like a 20-minute break, give you guys a chance to chat, spend time with each other. We'll come back, I guess that's 2:35. So feel free to roam around, use the bathroom, talk with each other. There's snacks over at our snack area over there, and there's even a 7-Eleven outside. So feel free to do whatever you'd like to do. When we come back, I'm going to share the Four Noble Truths with you guys, which is where you'll have a breakthrough. It's the very first teaching of the Buddha, where you can understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can independently verify so you can see the truth for yourself. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Okay? All right. Thank you, guys. Okay, so welcome back to you guys. I'm going to move into this first teaching of the Buddha, which is called the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can establish what we call right view. This is going to help you to be able to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And I'm going to teach this to you in a way that you can independently verify. Because remember, you can't believe any of the teachings of the Buddha. You need to be able to get to wisdom. So I'm going to help you to first start out with something called the three universal truths. This is part of what's called the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is the path to enlightenment. This is what's actually going to help you to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state that I was mentioning. It starts with right view. This is the foundation that everything else is built upon. So in order to understand, right view, which is the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the three universal truths. Now we call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too, but you need to know that they're true. That's why you don't believe these teachings. So I'm going to teach it to you so you can intellectually understand. Then you're going to need to reflect, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Then you're going to need to practice in order to be able to see the truth for yourself. So here, I'll share this with you. The first universal truth is called the universal truth of impermanence. Remember, the Buddha is not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And what he's explaining to you is that the way the world is that it's impermanent, that things are constantly changing around you, that you will see something called conditioned objects that arise, they change, and then they fade away. These are called conditioned objects. They're impermanent. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, this is all impermanent, where there's constant change. These are called conditioned objects. And pretty much everything in the world around you is a conditioned object. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. They are called unconditioned objects. Enlightenment is that way, that it's an unconditioned object. By the time you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state because your mind is now unconditioned. And the natural laws themselves, they are also unconditioned. They don't change. But everything else in the world, anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, this is all impermanent. Okay, so this is the little bit of intellectual understanding. It took me about 2 minutes to explain that to you. But now you don't believe that. That's just something that someone's explained to you. Now you need to reflect on it to verify if it's true or if it's false. So I would encourage you to look around the world to try to determine whether this is true or false. Because if this is a universal truth, you would be able to independently verify it. So I suggest you start with things that you're familiar with, because you need to look around the world and see, is everything in the world around you constantly changing? So this physical body is something that you're very familiar with. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it's been exactly the same your entire life, or is this body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. You're getting taller. Some people get shorter. Some people get bigger. Some people get smaller, right? We get pimples, wrinkles, moles, freckles. We get gray hair. We start losing our hair. This is constant change. Our teeth, when we first born, we don't have teeth, right? Then they grow in. That's change, right? And then those teeth fall out. That's change. And new teeth grow in, right? And then we get cavities. That's constant change of the physical body. What about your relationships? Would you say your relationships are permanent, meaning you've had all the same people in your life your entire life? Or are your relationships impermanent, meaning you've had people coming and going in and out of your life? What would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Constantly changing. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Is it impermanent or permanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's go up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? It's impermanent. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's snowing in some places. It's raining. You got a hurricane or a typhoon. You have sun. Everything's constantly changing. So we could go on and on and on here. And if that's what you need to do to be able to independently verify this, you should do that. Because when you look around the world, you can see green leaves in the tree, brown ones on the ground. That's impermanence. That's change. You can see the wood planks on the floor of the temple, that some of them are longer or shorter. Some of them are one color or a different color. This is all change, right? When you're walking down the street on the sidewalk and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. That's change. Right here in Thailand, the sidewalks, you kind of sometimes have to walk up them. You have to walk down them like this, right? Or some cities, they're just flat, right? They're different. Some streets have sidewalks. Some streets don't. Right? This is impermanence. Okay. So you need to be able to independently verify this, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. By the time we get to the Four Noble Truths, you're going to need to understand these in order to understand the Four Noble Truths and have this breakthrough. Okay. So now the second universal truth is called discontentedness. If you studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used here. I don't use this word suffering because it doesn't actually represent what the Buddha was teaching. So I'll explain to you what the Buddha was teaching, and then I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. So in the original Pali Canon, the word that's being used here is dukkha. What this is described as by the Buddha are pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. He's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences, which are conditioned feelings. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, agitation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful for you to experience those. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But shyness is a good example of this, where it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you're on public transportation and somebody walks in to the bus and you're sitting on the bus and you don't know this person and they sit really close to you and your body's touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe your mind's kind of uncomfortable or dissatisfied in that situation. That's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. They're called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind is then going to experience a feeling. So if you look outside and you get really happy and excited that it's sunny outside, that's conditioned pleasant feelings, that based on the condition that it's sunny, I will then be happy. The mind is then going to be happy and excited. But the problem with that is that if you allow your mind to do that, that means it's temporary. So that means as soon as that condition changes, you're no longer happy. You're going to be sad or frustrated or annoyed, right? Or if you get so happy and excited when your mom's coming to visit you and you're so excited she's coming over this weekend and you guys are going to make that favorite recipe that you've always enjoyed growing up as a kid. But then she calls you on Friday and says, sorry, I can't come. I've had a change of plans. Now you're going to be angry and frustrated, right? This is called conditional feelings, that the mind is experiencing some feeling based on a condition. And there's pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. So again, this is the intellectual part of it, but you need to independently verify this. Is this what you experience? Do you experience conditioned feelings? Because the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind, and you understand that your mind is unenlightened. So if this is accurately reflecting what it is that you experience as these conditioned feelings, you can verify that it's true. Because what an unenlightened being will do is they will wake up in the morning, they'll see it's sunny, and they'll be so excited. Yay, I'm going to go hiking today. I've been wanting to go on that hiking trail for a long time. Oh, this is going to be so fun. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to have a good time. I can't wait to get out there on the hiking trail. And then you'll go take a shower and you'll come outside and it's raining. And you're like, oh, it's raining. I'm so angry. I'm frustrated. Oh, I wanted to go hiking, right? That's because you're experiencing conditioned feelings. Where an enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order to experience that happiness. And they see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends. It's going to be a good time. We've been interested in going on this trail for a while. And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And it's like, it's raining. Well, guess I'm not going hiking. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll call my friends. We can come over and we can make some food and have some fun, right? You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't based on the sun. So therefore you can maintain it even when the sun is gone. This is called unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that joy to be there. So these conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. So if you get so happy and excited with that brand new job that you just got, well, 5 years later, when they lay you off or the company goes out of business and you don't have that job anymore, you'll be angry and frustrated because you were only happy when you had the job. That's conditional happiness. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get to unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met for the mind to experience this happiness. So you can independently verify this by looking at your own mind and seeing that your mind has these conditioned feelings. And if there's a certain feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, then you can talk to me when we get to the question period and I will help you, because that's how you independently verify that, yes, the Buddha is accurately describing what an individual experiences in the unenlightened mind is these conditioned feelings. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't use that word because that explains the painful feelings really well. When you're angry, sad, feeling guilt or shame or fear, you could say that you were suffering in that situation. But if your boss walked into your office and said, hey, you're doing such a good job, I'm going to give you $20,000 a year more in your salary. And you're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And you got so excited about that. You wouldn't say you were suffering, right? If you're experiencing those pleasant feelings. Or if your mom called you up and said, hey, I'm going to come visit you this weekend. I'm going to bring over some food. We're going to have a good time. And you got really excited about that. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Or say that person came that is sitting next to you in public transportation and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? That you're having displeasure, you're dissatisfied, but you're not suffering, right? So if we only use that word suffering, we're only experiencing and understanding 33% of what the Buddha is teaching. That means you're missing 66% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal of enlightenment? So to bring your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha is talking about here, this word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness more accurately reflects what he's talking about. He's talking about the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the mind experiences in the unenlightened state, where it's shaken up, it's unsteady, it's uncalm. Have you guys ever been so excited you tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke? Anybody? You never had that experience? Have you ever had that? No? I used to do that when I was a kid. I get so excited, I would drop something and it break, right? Or I trip over my feet. One time I was coming out of my house, I had this pet bird. It was named Fred. It was a green parakeet and it was in a bird cage. And I was walking down the stairs. We were living in this townhouse and we were going on vacation. I needed to take Fred to my grandparents' house because they were going to watch Fred while we were on vacation. And I walked out of the house and I was like, hey, everybody, look at my bird. This is my bird, Fred. I was so excited. I was showing off my bird. And next thing you know, I tumbled down the steps. The cage dropped. The top went open and Fred went flying away. And Fred's gone. Fred was my grandfather's name, so I named this bird after my grandfather, right? So excited. My mind was unsteady. It was uncalm. It was all shaken up. And then I made an unwise decision. So as long as your mind's all shaken up like this, you can't make wise decisions. So that's why the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate conditioned feelings and get to the point where your mind is experiencing unconditioned mental states, where your mind's just always happy. You're always peaceful. You're always joyful, and nothing can shake up the mind. Okay, so you need to independently verify what he's describing here is what you experience, where the mind is discontent. It's unsteady, it's unstable, it's shaken up. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. This is actually the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Remember those 10 pollutions? They're called the 10 fetters. These are the 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And you need to ultimately learn what each one of these are, but I'm going to introduce you to just one of them because this is actually the solution to one of those 10 fetters. So let me explain to you what the problem is first, and then you can understand what the universal truth of non-self is. So in these 10 fetters, the first one is called personal existence view. This is where the mind has the clinging, or it's holding on to this physical body or this mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. The mind clings to your self-image or your self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, that's your personal existence view. Clinging to this body, this self-image, thinking that this is who you are, and you can only feel happy if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. Or say maybe you were in front of a mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting it to be permanent, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only be happy when you're being perceived that way. Or say you stood in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And then you put on a set of clothes and you looked, you're like, no, that's not it. And you put on another set, no, that's not it. And you put on a third, oh, okay, now I can go outside. Now I feel good, right? So you can only feel comfortable when this body looks a certain way because your mind's clinging to it, thinking that this is who you are. So this can happen with the self-image. I used to have this when I was a kid so bad that I used to get out gel and mousse and I would run it through my hair before I was going to school, and I tried to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I could only go outside when I got every little hair in the right spot. And sometimes this would take so long, I'd miss the school bus on my way to school, right? So maybe you experience some of these kinds of things. This is your personal existence view, clinging to this physical body, thinking that this is who you are, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality it is impermanent. Or you might be clinging to a self-identity in your mind, thinking of your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, or your job or occupation as this is who you are as a person. So for example, if you thought, I am American, or I am, Russian, or I am Mexican, or I am Lithuanian, or I am an Aussie, or I am a Brit, I am Spanish, I am this, I am that. If you clung to any of this stuff as who you think you are, let's just say you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're talking very fondly. They say, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, wow, they're talking about me, right? But then it's only a matter of time before somebody 2 tables over is talking in a degrading and disparaging way about whatever nationality you're holding in your mind. And now you're angry and you're frustrated because you think they're talking about you. Or say maybe you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you think, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife, right? And now you're clinging to that identity of who you think you are as a person. Well, as long as you guys are together, there's a certain amount of comfort in that. But then when you guys break up, your mind doesn't identify with I am single. And now you might have felt like the way to solve that uncomfortableness and that feelings that you had in your mind is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. And that might have been what the mind did to try to solve that. But that doesn't actually solve it because your mind's still clinging to this as who you think you are. Or say there's a certain job or occupation that you have. Like maybe I am a police officer. And now as long as you're doing that, you feel great. But then let's just say 10 years in, 15 years in, maybe you get injured, maybe you get fired, maybe you retire, and you feel like less of a person. You don't feel whole because now you're driving this taxi and you're thinking, I am a police officer. I am a police officer. And now you feel disgruntled and agitated because that identity is not intact. right? So you can experience this with your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things that your mind can cling to as who you think you are as a person. Sometimes people get this so badly that they might actually go to their family in their home country and they say, Mom and Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to find my true self. And now they might come to a place like Thailand to find themselves. Well, you're not going to find yourself here because it doesn't actually exist. That's what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self. They might go back to their parents and be like, Mom and Dad, I found myself. I knew who I am again. Oh, I feel so great. Well, they might have found new hobbies, new activities, new job, new friends, and things like this, but they haven't found themselves. But the mind is clinging to all these things, thinking that that's who they are. And now 3 to 5 years later, when all that stuff changes again, and it will change because of impermanence, now they don't know who they are again, right? So the mind stays stuck in this constant discontentedness. And there's other examples that I could give you as well. But I think you guys are understanding that there is no self. The mind, though, is going to think that this body is you, this self-image is you, and you'll cling to it, or the identity in your mind. But you need to be able to peer through that and to see that that's not actually true. So here I'm going to help you to be able to see how to independently verify this. Now, some people can understand this when I first start talking about it, but other times people have difficulties because you spend so much time accumulating this idea of who you think you are as a person, right? Like our countries, we have flags, we have national anthems, we have sports teams, and you've been taught that I am Spanish or I am a Brit. I need to cheer for my team, right? When we grew up, we had all this identity that the mind was holding on to. I don't know all your labels, but all of us were given labels at birth. My label's David, right? Each one of you have a label, right? And you start identifying with certain culture, certain ethnicity, certain characteristics and personality as who you think you are as a person. But this is all just an illusion that the mind is holding on to. So here's the way that you can independently verify this. There's 3 different ways that I'll share with you. First, think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about who you thought you were as a person. Has it been exactly the same through all those phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? Okay, so here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You guys shaking your head no? No? Right. So intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, because otherwise you would answer that question differently. You would say, well, there's less body. The body is me. And now if there's less body, there's less me. So yeah, I'm less of a person, right? Well, what you guys understand is, well, there's less body and I have less use of a hand and arm, but I'm not less of a person, right? So there you can understand. Intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, your mind has that confusion, that lack of wisdom, that misunderstanding that this body is you. Because if somebody says, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes, you're like, wow, they're talking about me, right? But it's only a matter of time before somebody says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside like looking like that, right? And now you're angry, you're frustrated, right? Because your mind's confused. It thinks that this body is you, when in reality, it's actually not. And then here's a third way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? Okay, Josh is pointing here. You get ready to point. Yeah, that's a common place. People usually point here. Yeah, sometimes people point here, here. I am here. Right? Well, if you're pointing here, you got to see what you're pointing to. What are you pointing at? You're pointing at a shirt. That's what you're pointing to, right? I'm saying, I am here. So if we took off the shirt and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that who you are? That shirt? No, that's not you. Okay. So let's throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point again. And what you're pointing to is skin, right? So if we took off the skin and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That skin that you've got? Is that you? That's not you? Okay, so let's throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point again. We've got bones, we got muscle tissue, we've got organs, we've got fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, but your mind's going to cling to this, thinking that this is who you are. But you can peer through this and see that that's actually not true. This doesn't define who you are, right? You can train your mind to not relate to this as who you are, where you understand that there is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence, and we call this a person, but you don't have to identify with this as who you are. And of course, you would like to take care of it, make wise decisions to treat this body well, but don't define who you are and don't define your emotions and feelings based on what's going on through this body or what's going on in the mind. And that's where the training comes in. Right now, all I'm doing is I'm just introducing you to this universal truth of non-self. But there's training to help you to understand how to strip that away so that now if somebody says, all Brits are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Okay, they're not talking about me, right? Or if somebody says something degrading and disparaging about your nationality, okay, they're not talking about me, right? So I can perform this role of a Buddhist teacher while not allowing my mind to identify with, I am a Buddhist teacher. Because as soon as someone says something positive or negative, you're going to feel feelings about that. So it's a matter of understanding this body was born on a land that is referred to as the USA, but I don't have to form in my mind the identity of I am American. I can choose to not form that in my mind, and I can choose to not hold on to that and let that go. And that's where the training helps you to be able to strip that away. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on these three universal truths, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Looks like you have a question here. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because of my background and whatever. I feel like I've had, because you were saying only 2/3 of those were negative, but more of my discontent and everything has come from pleasant feelings in the pursuit of excitement, the pursuit of elevation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. I guess the longer that I did what I did, the more that I felt like I was suffering because I kept just pursuing those feelings.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that not what we're talking about on the feeling of discontentness?
That's what we're going to talk about when we get to the Four Noble Truths, and you'll understand why your mind was doing that. Here, the Buddha is just explaining what is discontentedness, and that way it's a building block to help you understand why your mind's doing that chasing after those feelings. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So when you said, you asked when we were younger, like child, teenager, were we different or were we the same? I had different interests and goals and wants, but I feel there was always like a baseline of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm getting confused with something.
So does any of that define who you are as a person?
I feel like that baseline is me.
Yeah. So that's the way your mind currently thinks. But what you need to be able to see is that that's a false reality that the mind's holding on to. So, for example, I use this example a lot, not just in our conversation, but I use this example in other situations. Like sometimes we're taught if we have certain problems in the past with drugs or alcohol, we're taught that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, right? And oftentimes people teach us this because they're not interested in us ever going back to use again, because it's unwise for us to do that, right? So if I were to adopt the thinking of I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, now I'm identifying with choices and decisions that I made in the past, and I'm using those choices and decisions to define who I am today as a person, which can actually produce guilt and shame in the mind, that we look back on our life and maybe 10 years ago we were using drugs and alcohol, and now we're not doing that anymore, but we still feel that guilt and shame. Where in reality, all it was is this being chose to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but that doesn't define who I am today as a person. So while you have certain things that you might have been thinking about over the course of your life, that you thought about, these are kind of intrinsic things that this person thinks, that doesn't define who you are as a person. And those things are all subject to change. Even our values and our morals and things like this stuff is all changing as you're growing and evolving as a person. And what the Buddha is teaching you is none of this defines who you are. Because if you cling to any of it, then your mind is susceptible to discontentedness. So if you clung to, I don't know, say I am vegan, right? Say you cling to that. Well, now when somebody says, oh, vegans are so friendly and so forth, or someone says, oh, vegans are blah, 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 degrading and just, something like that, then you're going to be angry and frustrated because you're holding on to that as who you might think you are as a person. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see you can strip all that away, and it's going to lead to peace and joy, because your mind is not going to be swayed in one way or another with either pleasant feelings or painful feelings based on this clinging that it does with the self-image and the self-identity. Okay, so this one oftentimes takes people a lot of time to peer into it. I've had some students take upwards of a year to really look at this and really understand it. So we've spent so much time accumulating this idea of a personal existence view and of a self that it's really hard to look at it and say, no, those things aren't me. It doesn't define who I am as a person. Like, I am an entrepreneur. Right? Someone might cling to that as who they think they are. And now it's hindering them from maybe going in another direction and maybe running a charitable organization, because they, even though that's something they really aspire for and they think would be really great for their life, because their mind's clinging to this idea of I am an entrepreneur, their mind is unwilling to go into this other direction. So your mind can get free of holding on to any of these kinds of things and defining who you are as a person based on this stuff. And now your mind can be more free in terms of its mental state. Mm-hmm. You getting ready to ask a question? Mm-hmm.
So it's about the non-permanent self. When you were explaining this part of the body doesn't identify me as a person or something, as a self. So there are people that, due to their body conditions, they might not be able to do some things, and they will be able to do other things. So that gives them an identification. I don't know if I'm explaining. So if you don't have legs, let's say, you will not be able to do some things. So you will identify yourself in a different way to others that have got legs.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand that part of the self, and you are not the body.
Sure. So there's what the mind currently thinks in the unenlightened state, and then there's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to understand in order to be able to free your mind of the pollutions that are causing discontentedness. And these two things are oftentimes very opposite and very much at odds with each other. So there's the way the mind currently thinks. So using your example, if someone's legs were amputated, they might think, I am an amputee. Right? That might be the way that they identify in their mind. And for somebody who does that and they say, oh, I can't do those things, I'm unable to do those things because I am an amputee. And now maybe they feel certain feelings about that based on seeing other people who do have legs, and now they have certain feelings and emotions as a result of that. And they're holding on to that identity. Whereas if they shed that out of their mind and they realize, like, well, no, some people have legs, and some people don't. That's impermanence. That's all that is, right? And now I don't need that to be limiting me in terms of what I choose to do in the world. I can choose to try to do all these different things. And maybe some things I'm truly limited from being able to do, but I can at least try. Like even riding a bicycle, They have bicycles now that you can use your arms, right, and your hands, right? So even an amputee can ride a bicycle. But what the Buddha is teaching you is not to deny the fact that there is a being in existence, and that, yes, it's true, this person does not have legs, but instead it's to train your mind to not identify with any of these things as who you are as a person, because then it frees your mind from any discontentedness or limiting thoughts that hinder you from being able to go forward in your life. And that's where the real power of it comes in. And it takes time to peer into this. Like I mentioned, I've seen some students take upwards of a year to start understanding this. It takes multiple conversations oftentimes. So this is like a little introduction to it here for you guys. Yep. You guys have more?
Yeah. So related to that, I'm gluten free,
Mm-hmm.
and my whole life I've always identified with being gluten free.
Yep.
But would the goal be saying this body is gluten free?
Exactly. That's part of the training, is that you see true reality, is that this body is best if it doesn't eat gluten, and that's a better health for this body. But it's a matter of choosing that without identifying that in your mind as who you think you are. So you can make choices to not eat gluten without identifying with I am gluten free. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're thinking about it wisely. Yep. Okay. You have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of still about the identity thing. Say for example, you engage in activities and things like, for me, like I paint a lot, and I would probably identify myself as an artist,
Mm-hmm.
but how would I continue to do these activities that make me happy without identifying with it? Like, how do you, like in practice, how does it work?
Sure. So it's a matter of using the same words as Josh. You would think in your mind that this being enjoys doing artwork, and I like to do this being enjoys doing these types of things, without adopting the identity of I am an artist, right? Because I'll give you an example of this, because I've had other people do this. Like I had an artist one time who got injured. She was having difficulty seeing because in an art studio, they sprayed some chemical and she didn't realize it. And she turned around and boom, it got sprayed in her eyes. And she was having difficulty seeing for like 6 months or a year. And she couldn't do artwork. And it was very challenging for her during that period of time, because she was identifying with, I am an artist. And now she couldn't do art for that period of time. So by getting rid of that, understanding that it's not permanent. You doing art is not permanent. Even if you do it to the end of your life, it's still not permanent, because at some point it's going to come to an end. So by you choosing to do it because it's something you enjoy, but not identifying with it as who you are, now you can be free, that you can choose to do it or not and be completely fine with that. Mm-hmm.
Also, like, say I'm doing it because I enjoy it, but if we're like removing the pleasant feelings, so I would get happiness from painting.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remove that, the attachment to that, then what would be like the motivation for kind of doing anything if it wasn't making you happy anymore?
Yeah, so in the unenlightened state, you will be motivated by the pleasant feelings and ultimately craving, which is what you just mentioned, attachment. But that's not sustainable. That's not what's going to produce permanent happiness. So what you need to be able to learn how to do is learn how to enjoy something without conditioned pleasant feelings. And this sounds very strange to someone who's never experienced that. Have you ever been sitting like on a park bench before, or like looking at a landscape, and you were like, oh my gosh, I could just sit here all day. Like I don't need anything at all. I'm fully content. And it's just so nice to just sit here. Have you ever had that? It sounds like you have, right? So we might call that unconditioned happiness, where it's just like, I don't need anything else. Like I'm just completely fulfilled, completely content, just sitting here doing nothing, right? You can enjoy the present moment, and you don't look for something else in order to get that enjoyment. You're not grabbing at things, right? But what the unenlightened mind will do is it'll grab, because you'll sit there and enjoy that view, but then it's like, oh, I got to live and I don't want to leave. And now the mind's frustrated that it has to leave. So you can train your mind to enjoy something while not having conditioned pleasant feelings. And this sounds very odd for someone who's never experienced it and who's never actually trained their mind to do that. But that's what the mind's capable of. Because in the unenlightened state, you can only enjoy something if you're getting what you want. And if you're not getting what you want, you don't enjoy it, right? But by the time you get to enlightenment, you can enjoy everything. You can enjoy no matter what's going on. If you have one person in class, or you have 100 people, or sometimes I've taught 10,000 people at one time, right? I can enjoy whether it's one person or it's 10,000 people, right? Whereas if you can only enjoy when you have 10,000 people, when you have 9,999 people, you can't enjoy it, right? So what the Buddha is doing is he's opening up this ability for you to be able to now enjoy everything and anything. But the mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state because it hasn't been trained to do it. It can only enjoy when I'm doing artwork. And now you actually limit your ability to enjoy what you're doing in the world. So the mind needs to learn how to do this. You'll understand a little bit more when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, but you really need to experience it in order to really know it 100%.
Wait,
Okay.
can I say one more thing?
Yeah. Another question?
Yeah, just one more thing. If like you're enjoying everything, then how would you know what to do? Because everything would kind of be an equal thing. Like what
Sure.
to have goals in life or to make action. Like if you enjoyed everything, then
Yeah, this comes from wise decision making. So you can make wise decisions to progress forward in life, to accomplish your goals, objectives, and interests without having the sadness and anger and frustration, and without the bouncing off the walls happiness. Right now, if you have a goal and you accomplish the goal and you're happy, and if you don't accomplish the goal, you're sad or frustrated, that's not a goal. That's actually what I'm going to teach here next, which is craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind longing and yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. That's the mind having an unquenchable thirst, pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind calls it a goal, but it's actually not, because a true goal, you can gradually work towards it and you can maintain your happiness whether you accomplish it or not. Maybe you're 80% of your way there and you're like, okay, 80% of the way there. Well, I could give myself more time to get this goal, or I could add more resources, or you know what, I'm fine with the 80%. I don't need to go any further. And now you can maintain your happiness. But with a craving, desire, attachment, you can't do that. So a true goal is something that you don't form your feelings based on, but instead you gradually work towards it through wise decision making, where in the unenlightened state, you'll be motivated by those pleasant feelings. Right? You'll want that pleasant feeling. So you'll chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. But this is why you get exhausted too. That if you're not chasing, the mind will swing all the way to the other side and you'll feel dull and lethargic and lazy. Right? So that chase, you can only keep it up for as long as the craving is there. And eventually the craving will extinguish and you won't do it anymore. That's why you maybe have had like personal hobbies that you got really into and you were chasing, and then you're just like, I don't want to do it anymore, right? That's because the craving burned out. And then the mind might have swung to the other side where you're like kind of like lacking initiative and ambition and enthusiasm. But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is come to the middle where you can have ambition and enthusiasm and work towards a goal, objective, or interest without forming your feelings on it. Then your mind doesn't swing back and forth like this, and you can actually pursue that goal for the rest of your life. Because I think the Buddha had one of the most ambitious goals that I've ever heard of. Here he was teaching 2,500 years ago in a small region of Northeast India, speaking a language that only a limited number of people understood. And his goal was, I would like these teachings to reach the entire world. Right? Travel was not easy back then. Languages, there was no international language. And here he had this goal 2,500 years ago. And it's only now that we're actually able to fulfill that goal, right? So he was working towards a goal that he realized he would never actually attain during his life. And that's what you would like to be able to do, is work towards a goal, realizing you may or may not actually accomplish it, but you're still willing to work towards it through wise decision making. And you're not chasing feelings, And that's not your motivation. Instead, your motivation is you know it's wise to do this particular thing. And now you'll do that for a sustainable period of time and it won't burn out. Yeah. Okay. So now we can move into this, because once you understand the three universal truths and you've independently verified that, and you might have some more work that you need to do here, right? You can start understanding this next thing, which is craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. If you've ever been in the mall and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I can't wait to get those on my feet. Oh, my friends are going to see those at work on Monday morning. And oh, it's going to be so great. That's your craving, not the shoes themselves, but the way that the mind is longing, yearning for it. Or it might have been a video game or a new phone or some jewelry or any number of things. The mind can long and yearn for this. You guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this? Yeah, you know, right? Okay, so now we've got all the building blocks we need to understand the Four Noble Truths, where you can have a breakthrough, to understanding the problem in the mind, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. So the problem that each and every unenlightened being is experiencing is in the first noble truth. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, conditioned feelings. The mind will be shaken up. That it'll be happy and excited and elated, but then it'll be sad and angry or frustrated. Then it's going to be bored and lonely and shy and embarrassed. Then it's going to be excited again and happy. And the mind's just basically going up and down and up and down. Of course, there's periods of peace and calm here and there, but it's only a matter of time before the mind goes up and down and up and down. That's the problem that every unenlightened being is experiencing. The cause of this problem is in the second noble truth. Discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples. So those pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning, the wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. And the mind can only be happy when it gets what it wants. But when it's not getting what it wants and expects, it experiences the painful feelings, the anger, sadness, frustration, and others, right? So this is the cause of discontentedness, the craving, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be permanent when you live in an impermanent world. So here's some examples. Think back to maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. And when you guys first got together, maybe you were so happy. You were so excited. This person is calling you, they're checking in on you. Maybe they're inviting you to the movies or to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park, having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact and you get all these pleasant feelings, right? But then over time, the relationship degrades and you guys fall apart and you break up. And now you're sad or frustrated or angry. It's not your love or your care that's causing this. What's causing it is the mind's craving permanence. If this person's in my life, I feel happy. But then when they're not in your life, you feel angry or sad or frustrated. The mind's holding on and craving for this relationship to be permanent, when in reality it is impermanent. You can see this maybe if you've had someone close to you that has died, like grandma or grandpa or brothers or sisters or mom or dad or someone like this. You're not a bad person that you've experienced these things, but what's happening is as long as grandma and grandpa are alive, the mind's happy. It's getting what it wants, what it expects. But then when this person dies, the mind doesn't like that and it experiences this impermanence that it doesn't understand. And now with the mind craving permanence, the mind's not getting what it wants, and now the mind experiences grief or sorrow or sadness. If you've ever been to a wedding and you saw people grieving or sorrowful, you might have noticed this. There's grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, brothers and sisters. It's like, That's my child. That's my brother, my sister. How dare you take them away from them? This is what the mind is thinking, right? It's sitting there grieving and crying. You might think it's love. No, if you love this person, you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. They're going off in a relationship with someone. This is wonderful. They're starting a new life with this new person. But no, people are crying. Their mind's holding on. Or think back to maybe when you got dropped off at school, or if you've ever seen children get dropped off at school, maybe at university, or maybe at grade school when you got dropped off at school, right? Parents and children are oftentimes crying and grieving. Well, if it's love, like your kid's going to get an education, this is wonderful, right? But no, mom and dad are crying, and so are the kids, because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. Okay, so this is like relationships. I can help you see it there, but sometimes people have trouble seeing that. So let me give you an example that's not relationships. Let's just say you got a brand new car. You've been saving up for this car for a really long time, and you just couldn't wait to buy this car. You've been spending 10 years saving your money, stuffing it under your mattress in your house. And now you got all this money, and you go down to the dealership and you get your car and you drive off the parking lot, and you're so proud of this shiny brand new car. And everyone's like, wow, look at her, look at him. He's so successful. And you're driving your car with a big old smile on your face, and you park it at the store, and you go inside, and you come out, and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my gosh, you might be devastated, so frustrated and angry. It's not the scratch that's causing this. And it's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's the mind craving permanence. The mind's craving for this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to get changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's only a matter of time before this car changes, right? So one of the ways to say this is, yes, the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Look at your life. When things were changing, that was the most difficult times in your life. When you were changing living locations, you were changing jobs, you were changing your friends, or relationships were changing. This was very difficult for you in your life because your mind doesn't like change. Right? So you need to be able to peer into this and see it for yourself. Remember, you're not believing me. This was the intellectual part where I'm just kind of sharing with you guys of what is causing your discontentedness. It's this craving for permanence, wanting things to be permanent. But you need to look at this in your own life. Take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because probably what you were doing was probably blaming someone else. That's usually what the mind does. It tries to blame someone else for your feelings. But look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have got it, you would have been very happy and very pleased. You would have pleasant feelings. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or sad or frustrated. And if you have trouble seeing this, let me know, because I will help you. I've had plenty of people that needed help over the years. One time I had a student call me, and they contacted me. They scheduled an appointment, and they said, David, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, what would you like to talk about? They said, I know you teach that it's my own mind that causes these feelings, but I'm sure it's my wife that causes these feelings. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And they said, well, I went to work the other day. My house looked beautiful. And when I came home, she had this craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I got frustrated. How did my mind cause that? I wasn't even there. She's the one who caused me to be angry and frustrated, didn't she? And I said, no, it was your own mind. You were craving permanence. Your house looked a certain way when you went to work, and when you came home, you expected it to look exactly that way when you came home, and it didn't look that way. All you experienced was impermanence. That's all you're experiencing, but your mind's craving permanence, and they started to be able to see it. Right? So you need to be able to peer into this, because I can give you example after example after example after example. Every single time you've ever been angry, you've ever been frustrated, It was your own mind all along. And I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out fights with people where you're trying to convince them that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry. But it was your own mind all along. It doesn't mean that what they were doing was wise. They could have easily been doing something that was unwise, but it was your own mind craving for everyone to do it this way that was causing that anger and frustration. So you could see example after example after example of this from your own life where you were craving permanence. And this can be really eye-opening for you. You can have a real breakthrough here to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because then you can actually fix it. If you think that it's other people who are causing these feelings, you'll never be able to fix it, because it's not them that are truly causing these feelings. But when the mind firmly believes that it is other people, that's where you'll become unskillful and you'll push people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you'll put your expectations on them. This is the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled, because the mind thinks, oh, I don't like how this person is doing this. I'll just push them away and then I'll get what I want. Or I'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to them, and now it's going to fear them into doing things my way. Or I'm going to put my expectations on them and try to convince them to do it my way, and now I'll get what I want. This is what the mind's doing because of its lack of wisdom, right? So you need to be able to peer through this and see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. Think back to when we were a child. We were like, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they're like, sure, little David, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. Right? And then the second day comes around and say, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? They say, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. You're so great, right? And then the third day comes around and say, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? No, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. You're the worst Mommy and Daddy ever, right? That's just craving, desire, attachment. The mind's craving chocolate and ice cream to be permanent, when in reality, you can't eat chocolate and ice cream every day. That's what we wanted when we were a child, but we can't get that because chocolate and ice cream is not permanent, right? So you need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Again, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise. People around you could surely be doing things that are unwise, but it's your mind craving for them to do it a certain way that you can only be happy if they do it that way. And if they don't do it that way, your mind's not getting what it wants, and now you're angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. So there's a solution for this. The Buddha explains to you in the third noble truth that you can eliminate your discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you understand that the cause of these feelings are craving, desire, attachment, well, if you eliminate the cause, you eliminate the effect. Right? So that's what the third noble truth is showing you, that if you train your mind to eliminate that longing and yearning and chasing and holding on to things and craving for it to be permanent, you can eliminate your discontentedness. And you can verify this too. Because think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you broke up with and that you were angry and frustrated about. Maybe you were lonely and bored and you were missing that person. At some point you let go and you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move to a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But as long as you were holding on and craving that permanence for this person to be in your life permanently, you were discontent. So your mind doesn't know how to let go. But that's what the Buddha is explaining to you here in the third noble truth, that if you let go, your mind will actually gain its peace and its joy. So then in the fourth noble truth, he's explaining the solution of how to train your mind to let go, which the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to eliminate your discontent feelings. And it starts with right view. Right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's craving, desire, attachment. Wrong view is to blame other people. or to think it's the outside world. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll keep pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting expectations on people, and you'll never actually solve it. So in order to get to enlightenment, where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful, you need to have right view to start out with, is to understand what is going on that's actually causing these feelings. Because once you understand what's causing them, then you can eliminate them. But if you don't understand what's causing it, you'll never be able to eliminate it. So that's why the path starts with this right view. So the way that I suggest you practice this from this point forward is now and forever, whenever you're discontent, look inward. Oftentimes what the mind does is it looks outward, right? You show up to the airport, you're so excited to go to Thailand, your flight's delayed by 3 hours, and you're frustrated and you're blaming the taxi driver, or you're blaming the airline company or something like that. Instead, look inward. I'm craving to go to Thailand. I just can't wait to get to that mango and sticky rice and those massages and those elephants. I'm really longing, yearning, right? Well, you can just understand that not every airplane can take off on time. It's not possible. But that's what the mind wants. That's what it craves. Every airplane that I'm on, it needs to take off on time, right? That's the craving for permanence. When in reality, there's going to be weather issues. There's going to be a maintenance issue. There's going to be a crew issue. It's only a matter of time before impermanence comes to visit you. It's only a matter of time, right? So if you have right view, instead of looking externally to see who's causing me these feelings, that's wrong view. You need to look inward and say, what am I longing for? What am I yearning for? What am I craving here that is causing these feelings? And that's what you can then work to eliminate, and you'll get to your peace and joy. And eventually, when you get rid of all these cravings, desires, attachments, the mind longing, yearning, wanting, and expecting things to be a certain way, you'll be peaceful and joyful all the time. And that's what the Eightfold Path is going to be able to teach you how to do. So there's these 8 individual factors. It's organized into the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. And I'm going to be teaching this on Tuesday morning as part of our course that's coming up with Monday through Friday from 9 to 3. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. You can take the whole course or you can take bits and pieces of it. It's up to you. You can take it here while you're here, or I live stream it, or you can watch recordings. Also, over the next 2 Sundays, I'm going to be teaching it as well in our group learning program. So there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to learn this. It's in the book, the audiobooks, the podcast, the videos, all this stuff has it because it's so central to you being able to get to enlightenment. And it all starts with this foundation of right view. So this is the very first teaching of the Buddha, because you need to know, where are these feelings coming from? How am I ever going to eliminate them? Because that's his ultimate goal if you don't understand where they're coming from. So that's why this is his first teaching. This is like the if you ever been hiking and there's like a trail marker at the beginning of the trail explaining to you what you're going to experience, that's what the Four Noble Truths are. It's the trail marker to help you understand what is you're going to encounter on this path. Do you guys have any questions on this? Anybody need help independently verifying that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings?
It's not really a question. It's more a thought that I had listening to you. So you have given examples about relationships and things like that. But when it's a health issue, I guess it's just about acceptance, and then. So when you're informed about something and you have got a health issue, I guess everybody gets probably a little bit mad unless the person is enlightened. No?
Yeah. Enlightened beings wouldn't get angry when they're sick. What the mind's doing there is it's craving permanent health.
I know, yes. So what would be the solution? Like accept that you're going to have a health issue and then find ways to improve it? But okay. I mean, so my question is that there is going to be always like a little bad feeling, no? Or is it possible to just be happy about having a healthy issue?
So you're not happy because you're unhealthy. You're happy despite the fact that you are unhealthy, right? So in the unenlightened state, you'll have craving, desire, attachment. You're chasing health. This is where someone might be obsessively counting calories and grams of food and every little thing. Maybe they're working out 6 hours a day, right? That would be not necessarily the activity, but that's just maybe potentially how someone could be obsessively thinking about their health and now worried about every little ache and pain in the body, right? That would be craving, desire, attachment. But you could also swing to the other side where it's like, I don't really care about what's going on with this body. And now you're not taking care of it. You're not choosing to eat or do any kind of exercise that would be wise for the body. These are two extremes that you can usually see pretty easily. The Buddha is teaching you this middle way where you understand that, hey, this body is not me. It doesn't define who I am, but it's wise for me to take care of it and make wise decisions, understanding that it is impermanent. It's going to be sick sometimes, but I can make wise decisions to keep it as healthy as possible so that it can serve me well in my day-to-day life. But I'm not going to form feelings based on whether it's healthy or unhealthy, because all that is impermanence, right? So for example, when you walk down the street, if the wind is not blowing, do you get upset? If the wind is blowing, do you get upset? Okay, but let's just use the wind for a moment, right? So if there's no wind, you're happy. If there is wind, you're still happy, right? All that is impermanence. It's just change. And the mind doesn't have a craving for it to be windy or not windy. But with the health, the mind is craving for permanent health. And it can only be happy if the body's healthy. But the thing is this body is just like the wind. Sometimes it's going to be healthy and sometimes it's going to be sick because it's impermanent. It can't be permanently healthy because it is impermanent. It's a conditioned object. But the mind craves permanence. So you need to get to the point where you make wise decisions towards maintaining your health, fully understanding that at some point this body is going to be unhealthy. It's normal. It's impermanence. So this is where the training comes in, to be able to train the mind to be able to do this. So this is something that the mind doesn't have the wisdom of how to do. Just like when we were growing up as children, we learned the wisdom of how to clean this body because we needed to clean this body, and we realized that's a wise thing to do. There's this other part of this being, which is the mind. And if you haven't learned how to clean the mind, an individual's walking around with this mind, with these pollutions that the Buddha discovered, and now it's very uncomfortable. Just like if you didn't clean this body for several days, weeks, months, or years, and you were walking around that way, you'd be pretty uncomfortable, right? Well, if you've been walking around that way without cleaning the mind, that's why the mind is experiencing uncomfortableness. So you would like to not just clean the body, because that's one component of this being, but you'd like to clean the mind as well. But we didn't learn that growing up as children because our parents didn't have that wisdom. So now that you're an adult, you can learn how to do that. So the mind can get to a point where there's no anger, there's no sadness, not even the slightest ickiness in the mind. And you understand that, yes, this body is ultimately going to degrade and disintegrate. And that's okay. But you're making wise decisions towards maintaining your health as best as you can. That's the middle way, where you're not chasing it and longing, yearning, but you're also not dull and lethargic and indifferent either. You're in the middle where you're gradually making wise decisions to maintain your health. This is something you can learn and you can practice. Yeah. Yeah. Could you use that for the people online?
I'm thinking about cancer, for example, and I don't know, I'm just talking about myself, but that I've never been in that situation, but probably if I was there, there could be this worry about death, no? So I guess there is a lot of work to do there. So
yes,
I do understand the theory. It's easy to understand it, but I guess it's the practice what is difficult, right?
Exactly. Because that person who fears death, they're just craving permanent life. Right? Or maybe they're craving permanent comfort of the body, and the idea of the pain that they're going to experience as part of the dying process. Now they're experiencing painful feelings in the mind, because there's the body and there's the mind. There's the physical pain, but then there's the mental anguish that an individual will experience because of the craving. So you can get to a point where you understand that, yes, this body is going to die at some point, and that's normal. That is impermanence. And you don't have to feel scared about that or fearful about that or any of these other things. You can just understand that, yeah, I'm going to try to maintain the health of this body as best as I can. I'm going to look both ways across the street before I cross the street. I'm going to eat certain foods and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do this obsessively, but I'm not going to be indifferent either. I'm going to make wise decisions and be in the middle. And now as you get closer and closer to death, you just understand that, yeah, this is normal. And now the body dies and whatever happens after that happens, right? That's another conversation. But yeah, this is training that the mind needs. And this Eightfold Path is going to guide you in how to do that. Mm-hmm. Anything else you guys would like to ask? Consulting with your consultant? Okay. All right. So I'll just end with this last thing here, is that the teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again. That's what his teachings are. And in this first teaching, he's helping you to be able to see what is hurting you, is that it's inside one's own mind. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing this, and that's why people go around trying to fix everybody. But there's 8 billion people in the world. You're not going to be able to convince 8 billion people to do things your way. But you can train one mind. There's one mind who you can train. Do you know whose mind that is? Yourself, right? And that's going to be challenging enough, right? To change your own mind, right? So how could you change 8 billion people, right? So the Buddha is focusing on this growth and this development inside your own mind. And by doing that, you can actually get to peace and joy. And that's not to ignore that there's plenty of suffering in the world. There's plenty of unwise things that are happening in the world. There's plenty of unfortunate things that are happening in the world. It's just to understand that you don't have control over those things happening or not happening. You're not choosing those decisions for those things to occur. And that's why you can't stop them from occurring. All you can do is change your own mind. And that's challenging enough. So by choosing to learn and grow and develop as a person, this is what's going to help you to be able to get to the peace and joy. So everything that I share here is to be able to help you to accomplish that. And we have the ability for you to learn through books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes. That's all available for you at no cost, just like all these other things. Our classes, courses, and retreats. We have ongoing programs, both in person and online. So no matter where you are in the world, you can be learning. And then there's in-person discussions, or online. You can get personal help, because it's one thing learning in a class like this, but it's a whole other thing relating it to your day-to-day experiences. So if you'd like personal guidance, that's also available at no cost. And then we even have a Facebook group where you can post questions and I will answer those questions for you. Nobody else does. They'll maybe read your question and then learn from it, but they won't answer your question. So all of this is available for you to understand this better way of life. When the Buddha got to enlightenment, he didn't say, I discovered a new religion. He actually didn't even use that word. He said, I discovered a better way of life. That's what he said when he got to enlightenment. I've discovered this better way of life. And then he actually taught that better way of life for 45 years. He got to enlightenment at the age of 35, and then all the way until he died at the age of 80, he actually taught that better way of life. And you can learn that too through all the resources that I share and helping you to be able to understand this. So if that's something you would like to do, you can get plugged into any of our events and our resources. You can find information on our bulletin board. You can find it on our website. You can come talk to me and I'll help you get plugged into all this stuff. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Okay? Sawadee-ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.